So we're going to go through problem by problem, page by page, fill out the chapter 2 exam review. Then I'll give you some time to work on the note card for chapter 2. We're also going to go over that little equations half sheet that I just gave you today. So a couple different reviews and a couple different note cards you can work on when we're all done. Number 1, adjacent angles. Anyone know? C, 2 angles that share a vertex and a side. Great. Segment bisector. Segment bisector is the one where it can be a couple different things. It can be a segment, a ray, a line, or a plane, but it has to go through at the midpoint. So that's G. Midpoint is the point on a segment that divides it into 2 congruent segments. That's B. Number 4, 2 angles whose measure has the sum of 180 is actually supplementary angles. Did you say E or D? D is correct. Yeah, D as in dog. Yeah, a ray that divides an angle into 2 congruent angles is an angle bisector. Complementary angles add to what? Complementary angles?
A.
Add to 90, so that's A. We already talked about E. Bisect
F.
is, yeah, that's the generic, just to divide into 2 congruent parts. Vertical angles, there's a picture. Which one is it? H, good. Linear pair also has a picture with it.
J.
That's J. And then
I.
a 2-part statement that has an if. That's the hypothesis. And a then. That's the conclusion. And yes, if then statement starts with I as well. All right, what are your questions on 1 through 10? Make sure you get all those down. These might be great for the note card once you start making it. The numbering's a little messed up. There's a couple 8, 9, and 10s. Anyway, the second number 8 says that M is the midpoint of the segment. Find the segment length. Yeah, so if the whole thing is 8, from T to M is 4, and from M to R is also 4, you just divide the 8 in 2. Now, the other one's not the same, because here, that side is 12. So KM would also be
M to R because it's half of T.
yeah, the wrong part's labeled R. The R should be over here. I'm not sure what that was. It should be 4 and 4. I just labeled it wrong. But on number 9, what's going on?
6. 24.
The whole thing is 24. So if M is in the middle and this side is 12, what is this side? 12. So KM is 12, but KL is 24. So you have to pay attention. Are they giving you the whole thing, or are they giving you one of the halves? All right, I would definitely put the midpoint formula on your note card. The midpoint formula is the average of the x's. So you add the x's, divide by 2. The average of the y's. So you add the y's and divide it by 2. So on this particular problem, the x's are the 3 and the 5. And the y's are the 10 and the 2. So that would give you 8 divided by 2, which is 4, and 12 divided by 2, which is 6. So that is definitely a good option for your note card today. Any questions on the front side? All right. Top of the next page, you can see that the angle has been bisected. This little arc mark means that the whole angle is 60 degrees. I'm looking for angle A, B, C.
Isn't it half of 60?
It's half of 60, which is what?
30.
30. Perfect. Then I am looking for DBC.
60
ABD is 60.
30.
It's also 30. It's just the other small segment that's made by the bisector. Now, on the other one, there's no mark indicating that the whole angle is 80 degrees, so it's just this small angle, FGH. And they're asking me to find FGE. So if the one side's 80, what's the other side? If it was like that, then you divide it by 2. But it's just this smaller side's 80, so the other smaller side's the same thing, and then the whole thing is what?
160.
Yeah, 80 plus 80, which is 160. So you really have to pay attention to how things are labeled. Okay? Again, these would be great things to include on that note card.
What grade would you have to have to not have to take the final?
Everyone has to take the final.
So you're not doing that this year?
All right, number 13. The segments are labeled as being congruent because they're marked in the same way. So what do I do with the 4x and the 24?
4x equals 24.
Yeah, you set them equal to one another, and then you can solve for the x.
Divided by 4 equals
X equals 6. Good.
Same thing for 14. 2x.
It is absolutely not the same thing. These are not marked as being congruent, so don't make them equal. What's the only thing we know about these two? Yeah, they add to equal 90 because when you put them together, they form this angle that has this box that means 90 degrees. Okay? So to solve this one, you have to do a few extra steps. You subtract the 60 first, and then you divide by 2. So x equals 15. Good. Any questions on these 4? Yeah, complementary means they add to 90. Supplementary means they add to 180. So if I want to find the angle that adds with 50 to make 90, I just do 90 minus 50, and what do I get? 40. Good. Same thing over here. I'm going to do 90 minus 65, and I get what? 25. Perfect. Next section is the same way, but now it's 180. So 180 minus 40 is 140. 180 minus 125 is 55. Perfect. Complementary and supplementary would be really good on the note card as well. It's very easy to confuse the two of those. All right, number 19. If angle 1 and angle 3 are supplementary, and angle 3 and angle 5 are also supplementary, which two angles must be congruent? Does anyone remember this?
No.
So they're saying like angle 1, the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 3 is 180. And the measure of angle 3 and the measure of angle 5 is 180. Which two have to be equal? Well, these are equal, right? These are equal, right? So what's left?
1
Yeah, those would have to be congruent for this to work out. This was a theorem we learned in, I believe it was section 2.3. I remember looking back at this one a lot. People really struggled with this. But the good news is, I keep saying it over and over and over and over. Put it on your note card. You don't even have to memorize it. All right, next section. We are saying vertical angles, linear pair, or neither. And we're looking at the ones with the numbers inside. Number 1.
Linear.
Those are a linear pair because they make a line when we put them together. Okay? Linear, like linear. All right, these two make the V when we trace them. So they're what kind of angles? Vertical angles. And number 22? Neither. There is nothing special about these angles. They're not even adjacent angles. There's nothing going on there. So we're going to use that information to solve for x in the next section. So you have to ask yourself linear pair or vertical angles first. What am I looking at in 23? These are what? Vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent. So on that problem, I'm going to set them equal and solve for the x. So what would x equal?
5.
Careful. What's 25 minus 10, guys?
15.
15, good. Now, which other example from these 4 has vertical angles?
26.
26 are also vertical, so I can go ahead and do that one right now. The good news is on this one, the x is already by itself, so you're done. That's a pretty easy equation.
Yay.
Okay, 24 and 25 are both what?
Linear.
Linear, and linear pairs give us what equation?
180. Are they equal?
Yeah, they add to 180. So in both problems, I'm going to add the angles I'm given equal to 180. So on number 24, I'm just going to subtract 140. So 4x equals 40. Divide by 4. Divide by 4x equals 10. I think x equals 10 down here too, if I recall. Because we subtract 60. Yeah, we get 120.
Yep.
Yeah. That's just a coincidence. X doesn't always equal 10 or anything nuts. All right. And what are your questions? All right, next we are writing an if-then statement. We're going to circle the hypothesis. We're going to underline the conclusion, okay? Every Tuesday I watch my favorite TV show. If, what's going on? If
My favorite TV show is
nope. If what? What has to happen first? You wake up and it's Tuesday. So if it's Tuesday, then I will watch my favorite show. Favorite show. All right, second part. Circle the hypothesis. The hypothesis is the one that comes right after the if. So if it's Tuesday is the hypothesis. The conclusion is
then
I will watch my favorite show. The if and the then are not included in the hypothesis or the conclusion. Okay? Yeah, it kind of sneaks right in there. And then the last 3 are just matching. This is where I think of them in order. In the alphabet, it goes R, S, T. This one has 1. This one has 2. This one has 3. That's just the way it's like a little memory trick. So the reflexive property has one item equal to itself. Which one is that? B.
A, C.
The symmetric property has 2 items that you just flip-flop. So that's A. And the transitive property has 3 different pieces, and you just cut out the middleman, okay? So that's the transitive property. All right, we are going to pause as a group here. I'm going to give you your note cards. I'm going to give you maybe 10 minutes to work on the note cards and to work on that equations review I gave you. Then we'll go over the equations review. I'll give you a second note card for today. Questions?
The 6 is so sweet. We got a lot of them too.
What?
Okay,
So we're doing chapter 3 on Friday and then chapter 4 next week. We just did 4 chapters and then this. So we're spending about 2 days on each. No, your final, we don't have any more tests till the final. You're good. So this is just getting you ready for next Thursday. All right, let's do this. So this is that little half sheet equations review. Number 1 is just a pretty standard 2-stepper. How do I start this?
-2.
Subtract 2 from both sides. 2x equals 12. Then what? Divide by 2. Divide by 2. X equals 6. Good. I left an answer line, but there's not really a lot of space, so just squeeze it in wherever you can. Number 2. This one has a fraction, which gave people some grief when we took this quiz last week. What should I do? You multiply by the reciprocal, but not yet. First, we have to move the +8. Subtract 8 from both sides. So 2/3 n equals 2. Then what? Then we do the reciprocal. And 2 times 3/2, the 2's cancel if you're doing it by hand. And you're just left with 3. If you're not doing it by hand, just type it in the calculator. 2 times 3 ABC button 2 equals, and it'll do it for you. Number 3 is actually just a 1-stepper, but it's written a little more tricky than it needs to be. What should I do? We don't divide. We got to undo adding. How do you undo adding? Subtract. You can't add the 6 and the n because they're not like terms. They would have to both be n's or both be regular numbers. So we're going to subtract 6 from both sides. That gives us 9 equals n, or n equals 9. And number 4, what should I do? Undo subtracting 6 by adding 6. Good. So this is just x divided by 3 equals 8. How do you undo dividing an x by 3? What's the inverse of division? Undo dividing, multiplying. You guys fell asleep on me. So this is going to be x equals 24. Remember, you can just plug it back in to figure out which one works. The final is multiple choice, so honestly, you could just plug in all the options and see which one works. Just kind of a trick for you. All right, number 5 has variables on both sides. So I'm going to move the minus w, or the negative w. How do I do that? Add a w. So what's 10w plus a w? 11w. And that equals 22. Then what? Divide 22 by 11 and you get w equals 2. Good. All right. Number 6. What do I do?
Subtract 3.
You could start with subtracting 3, Normally we get all the variables together, but subtracting 3 would not be a bad move. So I'll just follow orders as given. 21 minus 3 is 18. Then what? Now get the variables together. So do you want to move the 8m or the 7m?
7.
The 7. We usually move the smaller one. So what's 8m minus 7m?
1.
1m. So m equals 18. All right, 7. I got some parentheses. What am I going to do?
Square root.
Yeah. No. How do I get rid of the parentheses? We usually do it like that. What is that called?
Oh, I forgot what it's called.
It's called distributing. So I have 28 equals, you multiply the 4 and the x, you get 4x. You multiply the 4 and the 2, you get a minus 8. Then what?
Plus 8.
Add 8 to both sides. That gives me 36 equals 4x. Now what?
Divided by 4.
Divided by 4. What is 36 divided by 4? 9. So you could write 9 equals x, or x equals 9 is usually how we write it.
We got a puppy guard on the 8.
Yes, number 8 is a bodyguard problem. So I got to get through that big old dividing by 5. I do that by multiplying both sides by 5. So the only thing I have left on the left side is n plus 4 equals, what's 2 times 5?
15, no, 10.
10. Good. Then what?
Subtract 4.
Subtract 4 from both sides. N equals
6.
6. Very good.
I don't know why.
Questions?
I don't know.
On number 9, I have an x squared. How do I undo squaring something? I take the square root. When you take the square root, that's when you have to write this symbol, okay? What is the square root of 49? 7. So it's just plus or minus 7. And the reason we do that is when you square 7 or negative 7, they both become positive 49. So you have to put a plus or minus. 10 is the opposite. How do you undo taking the square root? Square it. Good. So I'm going to square both sides. So those are gone. I just have x minus 7 equals, what is 3 squared?
6.
No, I just almost said it. Don't say 6.
What?
Don't say 6. What's 3 squared?
8.
Don't, no. Getting worse.
9.
It's 9. It's 3 times 3, which is 9. Then what?
Plus 7.
Plus 7. X is 16. Awesome. All right. So tomorrow you will be given chapter 3 review. You will finish it in class independently. I will check over it Monday for points. We will finish it together Monday, work on the note card for chapter 3. Tuesday you'll be given chapter 4. Wednesday is a shortened period, but we will have time to go over 4 and make note cards for 4. I also have some sample exam questions I'll give you one of the days if we end up with a little extra time. But by Wednesday, you should have 4 chapter reviews with all the right answers, plus the equations review, plus you'll get 10 sample exam questions so you can kind of see what the multiple choice format will look like. And then you guys are taking this final, your second hour, on Thursday. And then my 6th hour is taking it on Friday. Any questions?